Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing this morning? Hope everyone is doing well. Welcome to Passion, Purpose, and Possibilities. I am your Money Mindset Dream Big Coach and podcast host, Kenny Ingersoll. Thank you for tuning in today. Excuse me. As always, great thank you to IngersollEnterprises.com for their sponsorship of this episode. Please go check it out. A lot of great things going on there. Easter weekend coming up soon. Start of a new month. We'll start with that here. How has your March been? As you reflect on March, how has it been? How have you hit your March goals? Have you made progress that you were hoping to? What has March looked like for you? And what are your plans going into April? And no, this isn't an early April Fool's joke. But what are your plans going into April? How is April shaping up for you? Reflect on that. Couple of events. We have a vendor boutique I'm going to be part of, helping to get the word out about money mindset, finances. A bunch of other vendors will be there as well. So if you're local to the Salt Lake area, let me just share that. Magnet Easter Egg Marketplace, Saturday, April 8th, just down here at Fierce Stance Academy. And again, you can find all that going on IngersollEnterprises.com/events, IngersollEnterprises.com/events. So go check those out. Excuse me. So today we have the Doctor of Digital. Dr. Mick Smith. He's an author, screenwriter, digital marketer, podcaster, voice actor, and recovering academic. He currently resides far from the maddening crowds in sunny California. We'll be there next month. Sweet. Enjoying his parents' first new car, 1957 Buick Special. He loves hiking, music, reading, and writing. I'm sure we'll talk about that. So without further ado, Mick, the Doctor of Digital Smith, welcome to the show. How are you? Oh, I'm not able to hear you. No audio. A little bit of technical difficulty. Are you able to hear me? Okay, I'm not able to hear you. Let me test something on the side here just to make sure my audio is good. I'm going to mute myself for a moment while I test.
Oh, maybe we got some help there.
Okay, I can hear you now.
All right, outstanding. Said it was backstage before, but I'm really here.
Oh. So yeah, we got your video, but no sound for a minute. So I pulled up a YouTube video on the side just to make sure my audio was working properly, because I've had that issue too, where my speakers didn't work, and so just making sure we got all that. But looks like we got it covered. So welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Well, thanks, Kenny. I appreciate the opportunity to come on and chat a little bit.
So yeah, I want to start. Doctor of Digital. How did that come about?
Yes, well, it's kind of a long story, but let me give you an idea. So in 1994, I was your traditional stand-up professor, and that was my big goal in life. That's really what I want to do. I get finished with school and I go, yep, that's what I want to do. So I had been doing that. However, around 1994, I noticed that there was a whole lot of thing with this stuff called the internet. And I said, this is probably going to be a really big change in everything. It's going to change a lot of things. So, in education, I started setting up distance learning courses, online courses, because a lot of my students would say, well, we're losing time with our commute. We'd love to be able to get the material that we were working with, but at home or other times, what they phrase is just in time learning. So I said, yeah, it's a great idea. Went to the university and made a proposal, and I said, look, we're going to spend less time, we're going to actually increase revenue and we're going to reach more people. So it's a kind of a no-brainer. And from there, I started really realizing the possibilities of the internet. So in 1998, I got the distance learning administrator certificate from Texas A&M University. It's the first one I could find in the country. And I said, I really should start consulting and getting involved in the IT field. So I sort of transitioned. I've always been in education in one way or another, but I've always been right up to date with the technology and everything having to do with digital material. So I worked for an internet startup around 2000, got out just before the dot-com bubble burst, and then I continued my interest in both education and technology and applying it in many different ways. So digital marketing, voice talent, podcasting, all of those things that I think are related to this digital transformation that's taking place and having massive implications for society and culture. And where it's going, nobody knows, but it's just an interesting ride in many ways.
Oh, sorry, I'm going to pause that thought for a second here. The audio is really crackling again. I'm going to test mine just once. Okay, not sure what's going on, but we'll push forward anyways. But so yeah, you saw the change that was coming, and you were able to stay ahead of the curve, so to speak, or to jump on the bandwagon. I love that. I wish I did that when the internet first really grew big, but that's awesome. And then you became the doctor of digital and using it in many different platforms.
Yeah,
I or not platforms, but yeah, platforms and different ways. Because so often we see something and we only use it one way, but there's so many opportunities to use something, and I like that you were able to utilize that. And then that also pointed out how you see the value of time.
definitely.
Yeah, with your students and with your resources, with your own time. Um, that's one of the things I teach my clients, because they only see the dollar sign and they don't value the time that investing and spending that money will save them, you know, in whatever capacity, in home life, work life,
Yeah.
um, development, whatever capacity that is. They undervalue time and overvalue money. And I like how you were able to, you demonstrated a couple examples of valuing time appropriately.
Technology is something like, and this is how I approach it, because I said, if it's not cheaper, better, faster, then don't use it. But if technology can do those things for you, that's when you jump in. And I agree with your point that it's almost as if, regardless of the price, you are going to be saving money because it is cheaper, faster, better. And the digital transformation is really meaning business processes and everything that you do in terms of business is much better and it's saving you time, more efficient, which means that if you have staff, for example, and they can do things quicker, better, cheaper, faster with technology, well, then you have to use less staff hours, you have to use less manual labor, and that's where the savings come in. So it's this digital transformation that a lot of companies and industries are figuring out ways to do things better using the technology that's available.
Yeah, absolutely. And even simple things like auto bill pay for your household bills. If I can invest a little bit of time and set those up and not really have to worry about them again, using that technology to do so, I'll pay the extra fee or the monthly extra $5 a month or whatever it costs to do that, because of how much time it saves me, that I could use that time elsewhere versus paying my bills
As long
or
as you get money in the bank.
whatever, and credit card readers at the gas pump, where you could pay for it right there versus having to go into the store and wait in line and all that stuff. So absolutely, the value of time is incredibly undervalued, I think, many cases.
We have a limited amount. So when I would ask students when I was teaching, I go, what's the most limited resource you have? What's the most valuable thing you would have? So there are a lot of answers, but I said, well, it comes down to time, because you have a limited amount. We're not going to be here forever. It's like, well, not a dress rehearsal. This is it. So use your time efficiently. And when you make choices and decisions, especially for younger people, if you're wasting time because you feel like you have a lot of time, well, you put a few years on yourself and you realize, no, I don't have as much time as I would like to have and I thought I had when I was younger. So use your time efficiently and use it well. And it gives you a higher purpose in life, and it gives you something better to strive for, because you realize that you really have a limited resource of time.
Absolutely. And that, I think, transitions some of the other things you enjoy doing with your time. Your parents' Buick, the hiking, music, reading. What do you like about the Buick? What do you like? What kind of music? What kind of books do you read? What value? What do you get out of that? What enjoyment? How does that all tie together with your business and your growth? And you know, excuse me.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. So I've been a recovering academic, and that's true because I've always had an academic background, clearly based on what I've done for a number of decades. But I'm recovering academic because I said there's some pros and cons about academia, and I saw a lot of the cons. So I'm not necessarily doing the same things. That's why I said I went through a number of positions, executive positions, and teaching. But I realized that that kind of structure is too limiting for what I would like to do. So I have over 4,000 books in my library and love to get more, a bibliophile, love to read, love to do all the things that having to do with reading, and things that I thought were all in academia, and then found that there's more politics and there's more other things that are going on behind the scenes that are not quite so obvious to you. But then in terms of then production, I like to be productive, and I say I don't like to look at life as work, but productivity. So as a result, I had a novel that came out last July, and I'm working on two books currently, one on work-life balance and also one on history, which is a part of this trilogy that I'm calling Burning America. And then I'm also, because I love music so much, I've been following my favorite songwriter for years and years. It goes back to when I was a very young man. First rock concert, love the music, enjoy the songwriting. And so now I've got a book coming out in probably, it looks like August, that book on music will be coming out. So love to read, love to teach, and then also like to produce the things that I think are valuable and the things that I can address. So personal situation having to do with the novel, then some of the fields that I've been involved with, that is companies, and also that life work balance issue. I'm a historian by training. Technically, it's a history of religions is my field. So a book on that. And then, of course, loving music. So everything that I'm producing is a good use of my time, because these have been some of the compelling interests and passions that I've had in my entire life.
I love that. I love that. And that's, part of the prime example of why I named my show the way I named it. Because so often we just go to work because it's a job we got. Excuse me. And there's nothing wrong with that in itself. It's just oftentimes it's not fulfilling our purpose. It's not what we desire in the future. And maybe this can also be often be used as a stepping stone, but
Mhm.
and maybe that's how it starts to be in many cases, but it often ends up being the end result too, or the ending place, versus just the stepping stone that it was intended to be, and we don't live our passion, we don't
Yeah.
fulfill our purpose, and we don't even think about the possibilities we can explore. And um, you've got books that you've read and are writing. You've done screenplay. You're also a co-host on a podcast and several other things that you just mentioned. You know, so I love that you gave that example of living your passion and what interests you, and what brings out your inner fire, if you will. And how you can turn that into best serving others. So I we get in the conversation right there, because that just sums up a whole bunch of things.
Sure.
And knowing that it's possible, so many people don't even know that it's possible for them to do that, or even how to do that. So thank you for sharing that and giving that example of understanding, where you were and it wasn't quite what you wanted, so you made a few tweaks and stuff along the way, and gotten to where you wanted it to be and what it wanted to look like for you.
That's what I think. There's a distinction I always make between work and what you want to do in terms of productivity. So people will ask you, how is work, or what kind of work do you do? It's a typical question. I go, well, work is just that. It means that you're usually doing something for somebody else and you don't really want to do it. But what is your passion? What would you really like to do? And that's why I'm saying productivity, because there's the old saying that if you do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And that really is true. So for younger people, I generally would say this: find something that you're passionate about. What is it that you really are interested in? What would you like to do? And then you find a job or a work situation that fits into your passion, or else you're just doing a lot of things for other people and you don't see the reason why, and there's no rhyme nor reason to it. But produce the things that you really make you happy and fulfilled. So there's a psychiatrist or psychologist, Eric Erickson, said about the fully realized person. And I think that's what we need to strive for. You are a unique person. You have unique talents. There's never been anybody like you before. There'll never be anybody like you after. So you are here for a reason. And if you can develop those talents and those abilities to the fullest, then you are a fully realized human being. And that's what I would agree with. I think that was something I read years and years ago when I was young and I was in college. And I go, yeah, that's the kind of life that I want to lead. I've got certain things that I can do. There's certain things that I can't do. And once you can define those, and then also produce the things that you're passionate about and seeing the possibilities for.
Yeah, absolutely. And that reminds me of the quotes that we hear on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and also from Dr. Seuss. I might butcher it a little bit from Dr. Seuss, but you are than you. There is no one out there that is quite like you, and that is truer than true, or something to that effect.
Sure.
And it's so true. Those concepts that we learned from Dr. Seuss and from Mr. Rogers and similar really are profound. If you put them into proper perspective, and you don't underplay them as just a children's show or children's books. But that's where a lot of those inputs or those teachings get imprinted the most, is when we're young. Um, I was teaching a Dream Big workshop. That's part of what I do, and part of that is, what do your dreams like growing up? Who were you surrounded with? What were their dreams like? What was their mindset like growing up? Because they were implanted with the same things as kids that their parents were, probably.
Yeah.
And so understanding those and putting the proper value in those places, and then you know opening your mind to those possibilities. And I like how you said look for a job, but also some people created jobs.
Yeah.
Take the Wright brothers.
Yeah.
They created an I don't I'm leaving out all the details, of course, but they essentially helped create an entire industry.
Mm-hmm.
Or Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla and all those kind of people. So maybe there's something out there that you could create that's a brand new, or a combination of, okay, I like this part over here and I like this part over here, and you create your own thing, and you do you do it your way to fulfill your passion and bring something new to the world. You know?
And I love music, so I can give you music examples of just that. So Elvis Presley, the Beatles, Bob Dylan, maybe Jimi Hendrix, some of the greatest rock or pop artists of all time. So what did they do? Well, they took the materials that they were around. Elvis Presley took blues and gospel and rhythm and blues and pop music and what have you that was already there, but he made it uniquely and distinctly his own, and he became a cultural phenomenon. The Beatles also looked back at the English tradition and American pop, folk, blues music, and then they made it their own. So you can take whatever is there and all the elements, but then add your unique point of it or what your contribution would be for all those elements. So people were around Elvis Presley, but why Elvis out of everybody else around him? Why the Beatles as opposed to everybody else who was living in Liverpool? The point is that these are the people who seized the possibility because they grasped it and they made it their own and made it something unique. But you take everything together and you shake it up and you make it your own. And I think that's what the creative and artistic vision is supposed to be. You take what is there and all those elements, but then you have a unique contribution. And that's what those folks have been able to accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it, and and you can take them and get something from their thing, their music. Elvis Presley's music, puts me in one mood and inspires me, differently than the Beatles' music does, and sometimes it connects with different people at different times, and so, and Elvis, as we know, is long gone from this earth, but he's still affecting people, and that's something else we don't see is, yeah, we're here for time or limited time, but we could be making a positive impact on those generations down that we'll never even meet.
Mhm.
So we never know whose lives we can affect. Let's for example take the Beatles again, and if they didn't come together, and that record company picked them up, or the tour manager, or somebody else that started phenomenal music, or no, I'll take a perfect one. Garth Brooks. I'm a huge Garth Brooks fan, but some of his idols were John Taylor. So if John Taylor didn't do his thing, we wouldn't have the Garth Brooks we have today.
Right.
And you could take that example across so many boards. If you didn't follow your passion and put your piece out into the world, we would be missing something 60, 100, 200 years from now. If the Wright brothers didn't do their thing, where would airplanes be today? We don't know.
Sure.
So I love that, and it goes right into one of your topics that we've discussed is increase your voice. You want to expand a little bit more on that? I have my thoughts of what that means, but what is your thought, or what is your meaning of increase your voice?
Yeah, I think you can. I think everybody has got a story, I put it that way. And what not everybody does, though, is to tell or relate their story. So some of the things that I do having to do with either being a digital marketer or a voice talent or a person who can help others bring their books to fruition is to say, let's take whatever you have in your story and voice it. So, famous verse in the Bible, voice crying out in the wilderness. Well, sure. Why aren't you doing that? Because if you have a good story, you have something unique to say, then you have to find the proper vehicle in order to do that. So I have 2 podcasts, and I understand that what a lot of people need to do is to speak out what they know and the things that they're able to articulate. And maybe they need some assistance along that way. So that's what I would do. So I think people need to voice what they know. When you talk to people, and a lot of times they have great stories because of their background or because of something that happened to them or incidents or something that another person can learn from. And I think that's what I would try to encourage people, that if you have this kind of story, maybe I can assist you to bring that to bear. So a guy was contacted me and he's wanted to tell a story about his family that 2 generations back and how they got into the western part of the United States and what happened over the course of several generations. I go, that's a great story. It's a great American story, but it's very unique and it's unique to you. So you should be telling the rest of the world what this family situation was like. And I think a lot of people should do that. So I encourage people to say, get out that message. What do you have to say? Why are you here? That's the passion part of it. You must have some reason to getting up in the morning. So just as I was thinking about it, famous scene from Seinfeld was, I love the series, and George is reflecting about his life and Kramer says something to him, why do you get up in the morning? And he says, do you have a job? He says, no. Do you have a girlfriend? No. Do you have any possibilities of getting a job or a girlfriend? No. He goes, what do you get up in the morning for? And George responds, I like to read the daily news. I mean, so what he was doing was not having a life. And that was Kramer's point. His character is trying to say, I mean, get up for a reason. So whatever it might be and whatever your passion might be, you really need to find that, or else you're just living a very bleak existence. And life should be so much more than that. You should be finding something that makes you happy and something you're passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. And what would you say, like, for instance, people that want to share their story or start a podcast or whatever, but they're so focused on the followers and the numbers and the viewers versus sharing their story?
Yeah, and I think it comes back to that notion of passion. If you can reach one person, so I've never approached it by the numbers game. In numbers game, of course, you get this in sales and companies and what have you, that most people are approaching things this way. But life is more than numbers and data. As much as I love numbers and data, the point is that if you are following what your path ought to be, then people will be attracted to that. So what I would stress is the authenticity. Be authentic, be in who and what you are, and then the numbers will follow. So I get contacted every single day, somebody who solicits, well, I can pump up your YouTube channel, I can pump up your podcast, and we're going to get more views. Well, you're kind of missing the point, because that doesn't really have an impact. But what really needs to happen is for you to be authentic to yourself, be true to yourself, and that way people will respond to that. Because if anything the world needs right now is truth and authenticity, because there's a lot of untruth going around and there's a lot of inauthentic actions being taken place, and people respond to that because that is what makes us truly human. Those numbers and that data will follow if you are following what you really ought to have and what your voice really is, because people will resonate with the message that you're getting, and they will engage themselves because they understand that you are really reaching out to them.
I love it. You hit it right on the head with that one. I completely agree. I've had this show for just over 2 years, and right now we've got one viewer on. And that doesn't bother me a bit because, like you said, it'll hit the right ears at the right time and the right people. But, just because I've got one viewer on now, I've made several other connections, like connecting with you, for instance, and, so many other great connections that the value there and the things I've learned from them and they from me and all that stuff far outweighs, in my eyes, the numbers.
The saying, you reap what you sow, and if you're sowing good things, they will come back to you. And you find this out when you're teaching, for example. So when I finished my degree and I started teaching, I think, all right, now I'm going to go out there and change the world, right? Because my head is filled with knowledge and I'm going to share my knowledge. But you realize really quickly, then you're dealing with human beings, and what you know in your head is really ineffective unless you're able to communicate to them clearly and appeal to how they're going to be helped, or you're going to assist them. So you switch what you're doing as far as the head knowledge into heart knowledge. And what you're trying to do is you're almost connecting on a human level and heart to heart, because what you're trying to do is you're sincere and you're authentic. You're really trying to help people. And that's what I found students responded to that. So, I mean, I had the disadvantage, I would say, because I taught all the subjects that nobody wanted to learn. So I was teaching religion and history and things like that. And people said, oh, that's boring. And a lot of my students would come up to me after the end of the class and say, I really didn't want to take your class. I was waiting to get till I almost done to get rid of this class. And then they said, yeah, but I found it was a really good experience and I learned a lot. I was sure, because it's not necessarily what they were looking for. But if you are sincere and authentic and you're really passionate about what you know and you want to share and help people, that's what they will respond to, and they engage with that. So I feel like it was very successful with a lot of that teaching because they started to see the value of what I was trying to do. And I always tried to make it relevant to the students. So again, because I love music, if I was doing a history class, I would have the students walking in the class, but music that was appropriate for that particular period. So if it was the 15th century, I would play 15th century music. If it was 1960s pop music, I was playing 1960s pop music. And so what I was trying to do was to, as much as possible, envelop them into the time and the way that things were at that time so that they start to see that there is a progression there and that there are differences, changes, and they start seeing the value of things like history. And I think that's what they responded to.
Huh. Absolutely, and subtle little things can make a big difference and a big impact. And I think that perfect. You do coaching, and you've written a novel, voice talent. Um, what? How can people connect with you? What if they wanted to learn more about what you offer and how you can help them help themselves?
Sure, I'm out there. It's pretty easy. That's why I brand myself as the doctor of digital. So I would say I'm easy to find. So you can find things having to do with the doctor of digital. That's me. So I'm on Facebook, I'm on Substack, LinkedIn, all those kinds of places. And also the novel is pretty easy. It's available again on Amazon. It's called Burning America in the Best Interests of the Children with a question mark. Got two other books in that series that I'm calling the Burning America series. Those will be out too very soon. And then I've got the book on music that'll be out in August. But if they want to get a hold of me, just look for the Doctor of Digital and they can find me. I'm also have my own podcast. That's the Doctor of Digital podcast. And I also co-host the Aftermath. So I have the two podcasts and they're easy to find. So the Aftermath is one, Doctor of Digital's podcast is another.
Awesome. And for affiliate marketing and stuff like that. So yeah, and they can learn all about that. And then, well, I just lost my train of thought here for a second, which happens quite frequently, but that's okay.
No, you're too young for that to happen. That happens to me all the time. And just say, if people are watching or they view, they see this, I've got a grayish beard, and they say silly things to me like, are you retired? I go, retired? Are you kidding me? I'm still breathing. What are you talking about? So still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up because I still have that kind of boyish interest and trying to expand myself all the time. And there's a lot more to be done. So I have a buddy back east, lives in Delaware, and I love his expression. So I'm going to borrow it from him. He says, when you read my obituary in the paper, you can assume I've retired. I love that. I go, yeah, that's exactly it. Keep going for as long and as hard as you can. The songwriter that I've mentioned, he's actually a great inspiration. I followed his music for a long time. His first rock concert I went to, he's actually 83 years old. He's got a new album coming out now in April. He's got another album coming out late summer or the fall. So I'm going to look, that is really something that's admirable. Rock music is not something for older people, but he's still going strong. If he can do it at 83, well, yeah, that's my inspiration. I'm going to keep on rocking.
Absolutely. And again, going back to that quote, if you're doing something you enjoy, you never work a day in your life, so you really never need to retire.
Yes.
So,
keep going.
Absolutely. Keep going. There's so many things, so many other examples, Mother Teresa and things like that just kept going basically literally until they died, So if you found your passion and you're living your purpose and you're putting good out into the world, don't stop. Keep going.
Yep. It's reap what you sow. You put it out there. It's good stuff. It's going to come back. And in teaching, this all the time. That's what I was thinking. The analogy of the seed. You never know what kind of impact. I'll give you examples. 30 years later, I've heard from a student I was teaching a high school class, and she gives me her name and says, "Were you the person who taught mythology at this high school back?" And I said, "Well, yeah, that's me." She goes, "I can't believe it." She said, "Best class I ever had. You were a real inspiration. I just finished up my master's degree, and I want to tell you that." And I go, "Wow, I mean, who knew something like that?" But it's planting a seed, and then you never know the impact that you're having, which is what I would always say: do the best you can, be excellent as much as you can, do everything that you can, and good things will come as a result.
Absolutely, and I can attest to that multiple times. So, Mick, thank you for being here. I've loved the conversation. Um, just in this short conversation, I've learned a lot, been inspired. There's so many different aspects that we can look at different things and how we can live our passion and fulfill our purpose. So, thank you. And planting the seeds, that is huge. Because like you said, we never know what when those seeds will sprout or where.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've planted seeds, and I'm sure you have, and they've traveled the world. I've heard about this from this person who went from this person to. So thank you for that. Thank you again for sharing your knowledge and all that you do, and everyone tuning in. Thank you for being here and watching, whether live or on the replay. And as always, remember to live your passion, fulfill your purpose, and explore those possibilities. We'll see you next time.